Welcome everybody. Super excited for day 3. We're going to be talking about the cold outreach formula. Before we get that, like Paulson said, I want to spend a couple of seconds kind of backtracking. This is the client attraction workshop. So we've been really emphasizing what you can do to get clients to come to you pre-positioned to buy on a consistent basis. And really my promise for this 4-day workshop was to give you a mechanism to get clients coming in and month out pre-positioned to buy. And so day 1, what we did is we unpacked kind of this client attraction method. We talked about having the right funnel, right? Really making sure you've got a process where people can opt in, they can show up pre-positioned to buy, and you can take them through a consultative sales process. Then we talked about building authority, right? We don't want to just be getting in front of people without any positioning. And so we talked about using podcast webinars, publishing a book, and building case studies to really be the authority so that when they do show up at your door, they're more excited and interested in doing business with you. And then we talked about flow. Like once we've got the funnel and the authority, we want to put more and more people in the top of the flow so we can have consistent deal flow. And so the key 3 strategies we talked about were cold outreach, ads, Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, and then joint ventures and associations. Today, we're going to be talking about the cold outreach side of the equation, because I know not all of us are in a position where we've got authority. Maybe we're starting from a net zero. I'd love to hear from you guys in comments, just getting started if you're just getting started, and or established if you're pretty established and you're really more focused on the authority side of the equation. So that was kind of where we started day 1 of the workshop. And then day 2, we went deeper into this ultimate agency funnel. I would encourage, if you missed it, go back and check it out. We really unpacked a simple 3-step funnel, which on paper looks really, really basic. But when you start to think about it, there's lots of nuance to how you set up the landing pages, the confirmation pages, and the sequence that happens between each step to get people to come in pre-positioned to buy. For those of you that were on yesterday and or day 1, on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being it was terrible, 10 being it was great, you got great value, just kind of give me a rating. Give me a 10 if it was awesome, give me a 1 if it was terrible, and you really think that it needs to be improved. And again, we're going to have the comments over in the Facebook group. Also, anything you want to add on the recap from the first 2 days?
No, I recommend people going into the YouTube channel and just watching it. Obviously, we cannot recap it at the full extent, so I recommend you do that. The replays are in the HighLevel YouTube channel, and we'll go from there. So let's go right in.
Awesome. So let me pull up. I want to make sure I've got Facebook open with the chats because this kind of started after. You really think that? Perfect. I see a lot of tens coming in, so that makes me feel good. I appreciate that. Hey, the other thing I want to say is, how about a shout out for Paulson? Paulson, the amount of commitment you put into these workshops. You did the mastermind a couple of days ago. You've been doing these every single month. These are multi-day, like deep dive workshops where he's putting a lot of emphasis on this. Type Paulson in the comments. Share some love for Paulson because he is a stud and he's doing an amazing job setting these up, facilitating them, and just bringing tremendous value to you guys here in the HighLevel community. So, Paulson, thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate the kind words. And, just like you, my intention is to just speak from practicality of what my experiences are. And if you don't know, I'm a previous agency owner myself as well, and we're here to give you success.
So good. Lots of love for Paulson in the comments. Great work, guys. Appreciate you doing that. So at the end of the day, right, really what we're talking about here is getting prospects to raise their hands, taking them through a sales process, ideally walking them through and getting them to the place where they become signed up clients, right? That's at the end of the day, whether that's through a demo because we're selling our SaaS, whether that's through like a consultative sales process because we're selling a hybrid solution like an agency service with SaaS included. This is really what we're trying to accomplish. And we talked about the key strategies we can use to get clients on a consistent basis. Usually the first one we learn in our agency is cold outreach, right? It's like we want to get a list. And then we want to prospect that list via cold calls or via emails or via, social messaging, right? Because we don't have any authority. We don't have any positioning. Maybe we don't have a lot of money to spend on advertising. And so that's what we're going to be emphasizing today. But remember, as part of this overall client attraction workshop, the other strategies you want to be thinking about are marketed lead generation right? Actually eating your own dog food, running Facebook ads, running Google ads, inbound marketing, putting out great content, webinars, books, and kind of putting it out into the world so it can be discovered and get people to enter into your funnel. Associations and speaking, like getting involved in the associations, involved with the niche that you're in, finding masterminds and groups that exist that you can plug into and be a resource provider in. And then joint ventures, right? Finding people that already have relationships with the clients you want to work with and working out win-win relationships. We'll be talking about some of these other strategies tomorrow when we go into day 4. We'll be talking about the client attraction method. But today, let's talk all about cold. So if you're excited to unpack some proven cold outreach strategies to go from a zero start to getting meetings and clients, type cold into the comments, just so I know you're here, you're with me, and you're ready to dive into this key strategy for growing your agency and your SaaS. All right, good. I got some colds coming in. So I think the place I want to start is to talk a little bit about why most cold outreach fails. I work with a lot of different agencies at this point. I've tried almost everything under the sun in order to get clients through cold outreach. I would imagine most of you guys and gals have been trying to do cold outreach, cold calling, cold emails, cold something or another, with intermittent results. Just give me one in the comments if you've tried cold outreach and maybe not getting the results that you want. Maybe not getting the consistent deal flow that you want, maybe feeling like, there must be something missing. Excellent. I'll try and bring this close. This text is small. If I need to share my screen, I will. But the first reason I see cold outreach failing, reason number one is bad data, right? If you're scraping your list, like let's say we're going to cold outreach the plumbers of the world, right? And we want to get in touch with plumbers. If you're scraping your list through D7 Lead Finder or Lead Kahuna or any of these other scrape tools out there, and I'm not saying those tools aren't useful at some level, but if you're using that as your main mechanism to get the prospects that you're going to reach out to, usually you're getting bad prospect data, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Like if you're getting businesses that aren't really in business, if you're getting generic email addresses, you're not getting the name of the owner, and you're trying to send volume, I'm going to send a bunch of emails out and hopefully somebody sees it and responds back. I've seen like more agencies waste months and months of their time trying to do this with literally nothing to show for it, thinking if I send enough emails, whether the data is good or not, eventually I'm going to get responses and I'm going to get appointments. And they just wind up frustrated. So really, this is important. We got to make sure that we've got good quality data. And what's frustrating is even like the paid sources like Data Axle, which used to be Info USA, SIC Code, they're only marginally better, right? You have to spend some time getting right data, researching the data, and actually having a solid footing to build on, because if you have bad data, you can do all of the volume you want, but you're not going to get great outcomes. I really think it's important. You want to make sure that you get legitimate companies that are in business, ideally the right kind of company that you want to work with. You want to make sure you have the name of the owner, the decision maker, right? If you're not going directly to the exact person you're trying to reach out to, it's going to be very hard to get any kind of momentum. And then make sure you've got their main email address, right? Not the info at, not the sales at, but the actual josh@plumberseo.net or paulson@gohighlevel.com, right? If you're doing sales at, throw that email out, move on with your life. No one's going to read that, and it's going to wind up throwing all of your efforts into a tailspin. So that's number one. Number two is I find often the message is just too generic, right? Your prospects are getting emails and calls on a daily basis from people trying to get their attention for everything under the sun, but especially SaaS services, digital marketing, SEO, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, funnels. If you're sending a generic, hey, I can help you get more leads, are you interested? And those types of messages, there's no way that's going to break through, right? And if you're not using custom variables in your cold outreach, a custom first line, custom imagery potentially, customizing their name, customizing screenshots, if you're not being creative and customized with the messaging that you send out via cold outreach, I believe it's going to be very hard to get much momentum. That's the second reason I see most cold outreach campaigns fail. just too generic, right? The message is too generic, so it doesn't get open. And even if it does get opened, it doesn't get responded to. Give me one if either of those two you've kind of dealt with in your agency, right? You feel like I'm sending a bunch of emails, but they're not getting through. I'm not getting responses. Could be one of these two big reasons. Number three is that the emails aren't getting delivered, right? If you set up your campaign incorrectly, and there's great, you can do cold outreach through HighLevel. I'm going to talk about that, with a sub account, especially if you set things up correctly. But if you don't have your domain warmed up, if you don't have your domain settings dialed in, you could be sending great messages to all of the right people, but they're not going to get to the inbox, right? And if you're not getting to the inbox, it's going to be very, very, very hard to get the results. Number four, and probably more important in my mind, a lot of this stuff is pretty basic, but number four is thinking about cold outreach as a single channel, right? If you're just using email, right? I'm just going to email people and I expect those emails to get through and I expect to get responded. If you're thinking about cold outreach as a single channel, you're going to fail, right? You have to go multi-channel. You have to be emailing, you have to be calling, you have to possibly be dropping something in the mail, and you should probably be using social messaging as well. Right? I find that if you can add multiple channels to an actual solid list with a customized message that has custom variables involved, you're going to get through more. So just put multi-channel in the comments here if that makes sense, right? Thinking of single channel email broadcasting, people get too many emails. Like deliverability, even if you get everything dialed in perfectly, is very low. And most people don't check their emails, right? It has to be very custom if they're going to check it. So yes, multi-channel. Like we got to make sure we go multi-channel. And then number five, like the other big reason I see cold outreach strategies fail is not jumping on the prospects that do respond, not jumping on the prospects that do engage with you. What I'm seeing is a lot of agencies try this. They'll send the emails, they'll make the social messages, and they'll actually get a nibble, right? The customer will write back, I'm kind of interested, or hey, tell me more. And they'll just kind of like, I don't know what to do next. I'll try and reply back to them tomorrow afternoon, or maybe I'll shoot a reply back. When you're doing cold outreach, you have to be like a dog with a bone, right? If they reply, you should pick up the phone immediately because you've got a very short window of time where you've got their attention, you've got their interest potentially. All of the cold outreach in the world without being super aggressive and super assertive is going to fail. So just type assertive in the comments if you recognize that if you're not going to be assertive with the leads that do respond, that do engage, you're going to struggle. I'd love to check in with Paulson because I know you've researched cold outreach a lot. You've done some cold outreach over the years. Like, do you feel like these are pretty solid? Are there any other reasons you're seeing campaigns fail?
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. So one of the analogies that I always share is how many of you guys remember your 8th grade science class, right? The teacher's talking about independent variables, dependent variables. You've got a little hypothesis and you're trying to come up with a conclusion to see if the hypothesis is accurate, right? And the reason why I think of that is because when it comes to cold, people change too many things at the same time while they're testing. That's a violation of the actual test, right? So if you're going to change something, just change the subject line and see if that has a play. If you're going to change just the messages, keep the subject lines the same. Now you've corrected that. Check out the messages. If you're going to check a source of email scraping, let's say you're using, I don't know, Lead Kahuna, Lead Carrot, D7, Coldlytics, somebody in another country that's sitting around manually scraping, or Fiverr, don't test out too many resources all at the same time for your industry. Just check one specific source at a time. So that way, you know that the entire industry is not something that's changing too much, right? Like if there's 50,000 chiropractors, that's all there is, whether you have that list or not. That's a pretty stagnant group of people. So really the variation is going to be on your messaging. Everybody still uses email every single day, so it's not a medium problem. They're using it just like cold calling. So Josh, to your point, and really what I see the violation is really when they change and test too many different things at the same time, or they're not looking at it as a science project to even begin with. They're just hoping, let me plug and play, it should be working some way, somehow. Let's hope for the best. Marketing is what they do.
Yeah, great stuff. So the scientific method, guys, right? Going back to 8th grade science class, the scientific method, right? Have a hypothesis, test it out, and then don't change all the variables all at once. Great point. So as you think about this, the good news is if you recognize these are the reasons that most cold outreach campaigns fail, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. You can kind of change and be like, okay, let's try a different list source. Let's make sure that our emails actually get out and expect a different outcome. So what I'd love to hear is hashtag fail if you've tried some of these things and failed, and hopefully something stands out. It's like, oh, that's why my cold outreach isn't working as well as good. That's where the opportunity is. So I want to unpack this model. Hopefully this is large enough that everybody can see. I'm sorry that last slide had a lot of bullets and it was really small, but ideally this one will be large enough. Just give me a yes in the comments if this is big enough you can see cold outreach formula here. Yes in the comments, because I do want to kind of talk through this and unpack it, and then we'll get to the specifics. All right, good. We're seeing it. Okay, so cold outreach formula, and this is what we're finding works well today for agencies and SaaSpreneurs to get appointments and to get clients on a consistent basis. Number one is we want to go multi-channel. Like I talked about just doing email and not having that work. So what does that mean? What are our other channels that we can tap into that's going to work well? Well, obviously email, because email is easy to get a lot of messages out all at once. The second is social messenger, right? And this is kind of your backdoor channel to get prospects' attention, right? Email, it's just anybody can get into the inbox, but you get so many emails that you ignore it. But how often are you getting a personal message on Facebook, a personal message on LinkedIn, a personal message on Instagram? Quite a bit less frequently, right? So what you want to do, get a good list, yes. Email them, sure, but also find them on Facebook, find them on LinkedIn, find them on Instagram, connect with them, and have a conversation flow that runs in tandem with your cold outreach strategy. Because we just want to get their attention. We want to see if they've got a problem we can solve. We want to put an opportunity in front of them, and we want to plant ourselves as a person of influence, as a person that's going to be able to add value to their life in some way. And I also want to remind you, you can use the phone, right? Pick up the phone, talk to people. The phone is still a thing. It used to be this was our only channel to sell, right? But most of us want to hide behind the technology. We want to just click away on our keyboards and wait for the person to respond. There's still a lot of business to be had by picking up the phone and calling, especially when you started with an email, you started with a social message, you leave a voicemail, you're going to get their attention. And so what I mean here is we're hitting them from a variety of different angles. The other channel that I really like is standard mail, right? You can't do this with a massive list, but as you really get dialed in with the list that you're going after, you can drop something in the mail. It could be a simple postcard. It could be something more impressive, like a copy of your book. It could be some piece of mail, like a mousetrap or a Rubik's Cube with an interesting message, just so that you can get their attention, so that when you email them and call them and social message them, they're like, oh, that's the guy that sent me the Rubik's Cube, right? Give me one if this makes sense. Kind of, we're going to go multi-channel with our cold outreach. We're not just going to send single shot emails. Second thing we want to do is we want to think multi-touch, right? I think one of the big mistakes I see agencies and SaaSpreneurs make is they want to send one broadcast email and hope that email is going to get through. Hope that email is going to get their attention. And the reality is, no way. You could send one email to 10,000 people and you're not going to have any impact. You'd be much better served to send 10 interesting messages in a variety of different ways to 10 people, right? That's going to have a much bigger impact than having more volume and expecting a response. So what I suggest is 10 touches. Think at least 10 touches to the prospects that you're reaching out to. And that's not 10 emails, but it's an email, a social connection, an Instagram message, a voicemail, a text message if you can get through in that way, we're touching them a number of times. Now, multi-touches, we're also going to drop them onto a pipeline. Reality is your cold outreach, you're sending a bunch of messages to a specific targeted group, gets very noisy. It can be very hard to like keep track of what's where. And so I'm going to encourage you, to have a pipeline where you're managing the flow of prospects that you're reaching out to. So you could say, sent initial communication, called once, called twice. That way you can track the progress and ultimately prioritize the prospects that express some level of interest. Like I said, one of the biggest reasons cold outreach fails is because you get a response and you don't do anything with it, right? You got to make sure that you really prioritize the people that engage with your social message or engage with that email or engage in some way. And then number 3 is we want to use automation, right? Automate the sequence of communication at some level. Don't get crazy with it. We don't want a 100 email sequence, but we can automate a couple of messages. We can also automate based on what they're doing. Like if we do this in HighLevel, if they reply back, we can have our workflow say, hey, they just replied to my cold outreach. Move them into the replied column of our cold outreach, and we can prioritize those. So we want to use automation as part of our multi-touch process for cold outreach. Now, the third thing is we want to focus on quality and quantity. So again, we want a good list with known details. I'm going to talk about some sources I found that work really well on this front, but we also want to get enough volume, right? We can't just pick 10 prospects and send them through this process. We have to have enough because it's at the end of the day, this is still cold outreach. This is still us kind of brute forcing our way into people that don't know us, don't like us, haven't seen anything from us. We're just trying to get their attention so that we can enter into their world. And so at a minimum, when we're talking quality and quantity, we want the owner's name. So we're not, just randomly, using a company name and expecting that to work. We got to have the data to know who the owner is. We want their direct email address. So we know like this is the exact person at the business. Could be the marketing director in some niches, could be the owner in some niches, could be the vice president of whatever, but know who the person is and have their direct email. And then I'm really going to encourage you, especially with your email messaging, to use custom values. HighLevel gives us the ability to put in lots of custom values. So we can put in their name, we can put in their company name. We can also get creative and use a first line, which is just basically a very custom, hey, I was looking at your thing and saw this, where you can include that first line so it looks like a very custom message that was sent. You can also have custom values, which include screenshots and images and things that stand out, right? Depending upon what angle you're coming from, we'll talk about some angles, but we want to make sure that it's unique enough that it stands out and it actually can expect to capture their attention. So this is the HighLevel cold outreach formula. Anything you want to add here, Paulson, or any questions on this?
Yeah, also remember, guys, the industries that you're going after has variation. So, for example, if you go after real estate agents, I don't know, there's a gazillion of them, right? So your list is going to be massive, right? That you end up acquiring, whether that's good quality or not. You have this massive list, and it's going to be pretty hard to have 8 or 10 or 15 different touch points. But guess what? They are used to getting, messaged, right? But let's say you're going after an industry like interior design, where it's a small segment of maybe 10,000 people. Now, you don't want to burn through that list and pound them 20 times and just kind of lose that steam. What you want to do is be more careful in customizing. So you want to use something like Lemlist versus like the GMAS method of just going with high volume. So that volume, quantity, and quality question definitely does come into play depending on the industry that you're going to go after, okay? And remember this, how many of you guys have this weary feeling about spamming? Like it's just not something that you get excited about, you hate it yourself, and you just don't like the idea of cold in general. Let me tell you something. People still pick up their phones. They still use email. They just don't like being interrupted for the wrong reasons. We don't mind interruption. We just hate being interrupted for the wrong reason. So if you do interrupt them, make sure it's for the right reason and give them a good proposition right out of the gate, so you do have some sort of a collaboration that's happening so they don't feel like you're just spamming them, okay? That's a really critical point in understanding a high volume of cold. Don't be afraid of it. Somebody else is going to spam them anyway. You might as well do it with good quality and get in front of them. Okay.
Absolutely. And on that front, what I'll say is we want to think about our cold outreach approach where, yeah, we're going to try and shake the bushes, right? We're going to introduce them with a message that kind of captures their attention, right? Ideally, if they're interested right in that moment, we're going to be able to schedule an appointment, take them through a discovery call, and become potentially a client. But we also want to think of it as an on-ramp where they get to know us a little bit. They get to know kind of what we're about. And ultimately, we're going to move them to nurture. So we're going to be adding value into their world, right? We're going to be inviting them to webinars. We're going to be sending podcast interviews. So we want to make sure our cold outreach isn't obtrusive to the point where they're like, I don't ever want to see you in my inbox again. It's almost a soft introduction, a couple of messages. If they're interested, great. And if not, hey, by the way, I'm going to be, sending this stuff to you if that's okay, right? So just keep that in the back of your head. That's what we're thinking. We're thinking a couple of messages and then on to long-term nurture. Landy says, I don't want to be that guy that's just being annoying with the cold outreach. None of us want to be that guy. I think most people tend to err on the side of being too cautious, right? And so they don't wind up in the inbox. They don't wind up getting any attention. So, balance that. Recognize you can probably be more assertive than you think, and it can work well. Rick says, what do you recommend time delay for the touches, for the 10 touches? I think you can do a couple of them clustered. So let's say your initial 2 emails could be within a couple of days. After the first or second email, you could send the friend request, the LinkedIn request. You can start hitting them from that angle. You can call. So you need to do enough of it like at the beginning so they know you've called, you've emailed, you've text messages, you've reached out to them in a variety of different places. But then you want to sequence it out a little bit after that. Good question.
How are you guys feeling overall so far? Give us some reactions here. Help us understand where you are. Is this going over your head or is this a good pace for you? Give us a 1 if you're liking the pace and the content is helpful. Okay, cool. I see a ton of 1s coming in, Josh. Let's keep
awesome. Let's keep cranking. All right. So the first thing we have to think about is how we're going to get the list, right? Cold outreach in the absence of knowing we're going to get a list doesn't take us very far. So where do we get the list? A couple of places, right? The first place you can look to get a list is you can buy or scrape. I'll talk about some of the sources that you can look at for buying or scraping a list. Number 2, you could build a list. So what's building the list? That's like you putting out Facebook ads, you putting out content, having people opt in. Your built list is going to be your best list, right? Your built list is going to be something that's really great over time. But it, again, takes a lot of time. You're not going to have a lot of people on a built list right out of the gates. The third is to borrow a list. So if you look for joint venture opportunities, people that already have relationships with the client you want to work with, if you can align with them, like join an association, join a mastermind group, that's serving the client you want to work with, that can be super productive, a little bit more of an advanced strategy. So for the sake of today's session, we're going to focus on buying a list and tapping into an association. And the reason I say that is because it's something you can do today, right? You can go out, source the list. You can go out, find out what the associations are. You can gain access to that data, and you can start doing your outreach process. I'm going to say be very cautious with the scrape list. Again, we talked about the number 1 reason most campaigns fail. It's bad data. So don't lean only on scrape data. I'm not saying never use it, but you're better served to spend a couple of bucks and get a good quality list with real owners and real contact details. That way you can spend a little bit more time with the emails and the calls and everything else because it's going to get through to a relevant party. So buying your list, number 1 here, I'm going to suggest that we join the association. I talked about this yesterday. My favorite play is to find the association in the niche that you're in, right? If you guys could, just in the comments, what niches are you guys focused on in your agency or in your SaaS? Like what niches do you serve? Personally, I work with plumbing and HVAC companies. This was one of the places we started right out of the gates. We started to look like what's the National Plumbing Association? What's the local association for plumbers? We find out what it would take to join that association. And we found out like, what will they give us? Will they give us the name, email, phone number, contact details of those people? In a lot of cases, they will. In some cases, they won't give you the email, but you can get that list and then you can go, reverse look up the email address as an appendant. We get a lot of, Mohammed works with credit repair, Greg works with HVAC, Landy works with functional medicine. So find the associations for those verticals, right? Search association, HVAC association, home builder and remodeler association. The reason I say to start here is because your association is going to be businesses that are actively growing, right? They wouldn't be paying to be part of an association if they weren't actively growing. They're in business. You're going to get the actual name of the owner or the person that signed up. That's the person that's going to be the direct contact that you're going to want to deal with. And you get to draft on affinity. So affinity means, you're not cold blind contacting everybody. You're able to say, hey, I'm reaching out because we're fellow members of the National Plumbing Association or the National Home Builder Association. Give me one in the comments if that makes sense, right? This is a firm foundation that you can build on over time. The agencies that I've worked with that have had the quickest success, pennied up, right? They penny up a little bit for an association access. That way they can draft on affinity, they can get involved in the groups. And when you get involved in the groups and you send the emails, you're coming at it from a better place than just blind contacting. Okay. The other sources that I found to be pretty good in terms of getting access to list data, one of my favorites right now is Coldlytics. I'll talk about why here in a second. This isn't, it's just a good quality source. SICcode.com, also very good, and reachmarketing.com. These are all sources that you pick an industry. They've got data sources where you can go in and select the list. Reason I like Coldlytics predominantly is because their service has a researcher on the back end. So you can say, I want all the plumbers in Dallas, right? And you can look that up on Google Maps. It will pull up a list of all of the people on Google Maps that are in Dallas. They'll bounce that against the tools that they use. And then a real person looks up to see what's the name of the owner, what's their email address. They'll also help you grab their social profiles and things. I found that's a great shortcut. And in at least in the verticals I work in, home services, local businesses, works really, really well. And again, the data quality makes a big, big difference. And then as a supplement, you could scrape. Like you could scrape with D7 Lead Finder, Lead Kahuna, other sources like that. This isn't my recommendation, but these are options for getting access to data. Anything you want to add, Paulson, in terms of getting access to the list, or how to get that initial seed list?
Yeah, you got to be really careful here, guys, when it comes to data acquisition. Like, I've been burnt a few times, and I'll tell you how not to get burnt. There are a lot of email brokers out there who are independent people, service providers, that will collect a list on a certain industry, right? Now, certain people, they'll sell the same list to 500 agencies, right? So everybody is pretty much with terrible quality lists because it's not exclusive. And then there are brokers, email brokers or data brokers that you can go to, that you build a relationship with. It might cost you a little bit more than usual, but they will essentially scrape out customized lists for you based on your decision makers that you're going after. Now, don't discount cheap sources like Fiverr. I've had great success with Fiverr where I found a random guy in overseas that is just gonna, he charged me $32. To this day, he gave me a list of 5,000 automotive owners, and we ran ads against it. It was one of the most qualitative leads because he himself didn't have any access to fancy tools, so he manually scraped random websites and independent sources. So the quality of the data ended up being really good. He probably should have charged thousands of dollars for that, but he just doesn't know any better. So I'm like, cool, go ahead and swipe $30, I'll take it, right? So you got to really be careful of the source. If you go with independent brokers, once you find a good one, you can use that for different subsectors, and don't reach out to myself or Josh asking for independent broker information and things like that. We're not trying to advertise anybody. If you go to a random Facebook group around ad buying or email scraping, I promise you'll have 200 people DMing you about their best list. But independent brokers are a good source. There's also massive data providers like Axiom, right? That essentially handles data for companies like Amazon and Facebook. And if you are a registered business owner or S corp, you can go directly to them and say, "Hey, I want to buy data on a certain interest or certain subsector." And if you're qualified, they and have reputable proof that you're a real company and you're not planning on spamming, they'll sometimes give you data as well. Okay, but remember, the whole point of this to have your own list. The best thing to do is to build your own list with lead magnets and things like that. Over time, you're not depending on these things, but these are few clever ways to launch. Okay.
Yep. Great point. Right. So yeah, don't discount those other sources. There's lots of places to get the list. Start with your association. That's going to be the best quality. Spend a little bit of money here, right? And you're going to wind up with a spreadsheet, right? Where you can say, all right, here's the name of the company, here's their phone number, here's their email address, here's their website. Ideally, you can have a field that's got access to their, to their LinkedIn profile, to their Facebook profile. You can have a field that's got the custom first line that you might use for your cold messaging. And then that data can be swept right into HighLevel and mapped to a cold outreach campaign, right? Hopefully that makes sense. I mean, we can't get too into the weeds on exactly how this is structured, but you get a CSV file from any of these sources: Data Axle, Coldlytics, Clean Leads, LeadCarrot, Seamless.ai, lots of sources that you can get access to this information. And then you're going to want to clean it up, right? There's got to be a process here where you kind of prune it back, right? Which in my mind is this legitimately a prospect in your industry? Do they seem like the kind of company that would be worth your attention? Make sure that the data lines up. Like if it's, in this case, Alec Plumbing, it's not Alec Plumbing and Co. Because if you're using merge fields and you say, hey, I'm really excited about the opportunity to talk with Alec Plumbing and Co., that looks like obviously not a legitimate sent email. So little things like that can go a long way in terms of how effective your email outreach communication works. So that's list. Enough said. Type list in the comments if you feel clear on how you can go out and get a list of prospects within your industry that you can use as the seed list to start doing your cold outreach. List in the comments. If you have any specific questions on that, let us know. Okay. The next thing is the approach, right? So how are we going to approach these prospects? This is what I call the cold outreach foundation. And so I'm going to walk you through this. First thing we need to do cold outreach is our list, which we just talked about here. We need, second, a message, right? A message that's going to stand out. I'm going to talk about some of the message angles that work best to get that initial, hey, this is why I'm in your inbox type of thing going. And then we've got to have delivery mechanism, right? At the end of the day, we got to make sure that these messages are getting to the intended recipients. So for the list, we've got the association. I'm a big fan of Coldlytics. And then whatever other scraped sources that you use, we've got our CSV file that we can import. That's our list. The message, right? And I'll share some examples of this with you guys, but there's a couple of messages that I found work really, really well. One that I've leaned on really heavily in our agency is one in your area. This is just kind of entering their inbox saying, hey, I'm looking to work with just one plumber in the Dallas area, right? Hey, here's what I've done with other plumbers. I'm looking to find the right company in Dallas, and here's why I'm reaching out, right? And kind of a couple of different ways to approach that. That works really well for agency exclusive services. I'm sure you can find an angle for it for SaaS as well. The other angle that has been a slam dunk, and we're going to kind of workshop this a little bit on today's session if we have time, is the best case study angle. And that's where you're telling the story in like one sentence of a client that you got great results for and seeing if they'd be interested in seeing if you could do the same for them, right? So this is the best case study angle. This works really well. And I think this could apply really nicely, Paulson, to SaaS. Hey, discover how XYZ got this result using X platform. Would you be interested in learning how we could do something similar for you? Right, Black? Yes, right? That best case study angle works really well in terms of the message. And then value videos. I'm a big fan of the value video approach, which is one of two things. Either shooting a custom video in advance. Hey, you know what? I was thinking about your business. I saw this, and here's an idea that I had. Like you actually record that. Or you say, hey, look, I shot a video. If you want it, reply back. I find that saying that in advance will get some responses. It doesn't work as well as it did If you're working with a really good list of people you really want to work with, shooting the videos can be pretty effective if you've already kind of whittled them down. So lots of different angles and messages that you can use to get your prospects' attention. Delivery mechanism, you have to get this set up properly, right? Whether you're using HighLevel to do cold outreach, and I know I've heard varying things on whether HighLevel even wants you to use the platform for cold outreach. It can be done, right? If you set up a sub account, I'll kind of walk you through how we do it. You set up a sub account, you set up a separate domain, you warm up that domain a little bit, and then you make sure that all of your records are in line. You can do this right from HighLevel. Then you can use HighLevel, and you want to go multi-channel, right? So your delivery mechanism isn't just the email, right? It's the email and manually finding them on social media and manually picking up the phone through HighLevel, through the power dialer to kind of plow through this. So at the end of the day, we got a list, we got a message, and we've got our delivery mechanism. Any questions or thoughts on this? Anything you want to add here, Paulson?
Not really. I think you've covered it pretty clearly. Most of the time, these cold outreaches don't work because of the messaging.
Right.
Typically, in the marketing space, we're all notoriously bad at duplicating. So we all copy somebody else's bad mistake, and you're not being innovative and creative. So come up with your own scenarios. Talk to the industry and figure out how do they want to be messaged. Have you ever asked a client, hey, what made you actually sign up with me? Was it the messaging? What is it, the offer? Was it the way I charge? Was it my tonality? Was it my onboarding process? You want to really dig in and figure out and unpack it, so that way when you do message out your next round of prospecting, you have a more certified approach.
Two things I'll say on messaging here, guys. When it comes to the email, your subject line wants to be short and punchy. Could be the name of the company, could be their actual first name. I'll share some angles here. When it comes to your social outreach, don't put a paragraph. So let's say you friend request somebody, or you at LinkedIn connect with somebody. I'm trying to get Paulson because for whatever reason I want to get Paulson as a client. I send him my email, I look him up, and I connect with him on LinkedIn. And he's nice enough to accept me as a colleague. Don't copy your cold message into that thing, right? You want this to be very short, like it'd be Paulson, and wait for him to reply back, and then take him down a communication flow. You recognize the way you communicate on social messenger is going to be different than what you send in the email, which is going to be different than what you say when you've actually got Paulson on the phone if you were cold calling him for the first time. Just give me a one in the comments if that's clear, because I've seen this happen, right? People they take their whole cold message and they drop it into the social message, and the person's like, "What in the world?" And you've lost all credibility in that moment. Okay, again, getting some ones. We want to make sure we put this onto a pipeline. So I've got a visual flow here. This might be different in different cases. If we're just using the one in your area approach as the approach, I'm a big fan of picking one city per week on our one city approach. So we'll pick Dallas, or we'll pick Orlando, or where we have an open territory. We'll go on Coldlytics. We'll grab a list of those companies in that city, right? We'll clean up the data. We'll make sure we get all the fields that we need. We'll drop it into HighLevel. We've got a pre-built sequence where our sequence of communication is going to happen, all of those messages, and then we drop it onto a pipeline. So whether you're doing this yourself or you've got an appointment setter, and eventually you don't want to be doing cold outreach yourself, you want an appointment setter and a sales team that's kind of pushing this stuff forward for you, but you would add them onto your pipeline like this, where you could say, here's the prospects that have been added. Your team can track, I made call 1, I made call 2. If they reply back, it jumps forward. If they express some level of interest, they reply back with anything like, hey, tell me more, or send it over, whatever it is. You move that forward. If they don't respond, which is going to happen in 90% of the time with your cold outreach, you send something interesting. They write back something of some level of interest. You call them, you kind of try and get their attention. Most of the time, they're going to go radio silent because they weren't really that interested. They just responded. That's where I think you want to send a custom video, right? If they've expressed some level of interest, but you can't get to the next step, shoot a quick video like we talked about. Shoot a, hey, hey, we exchanged emails the other day. I had an idea I want to run by you. Send that on social messenger. Record a video if you get something relevant to point out about their website, their strategy, something that's missing in what they're doing. And then you're trying to move prospects to schedule through your cold outreach. Leverage a pipeline like this, and HighLevel is great for putting it in place in this way. Delivery method, I could get into the tech here, but I think it would drive everybody crazy. Everyone would be bored out of their mind. There's specific steps you want to put in place, like cliff notes here. I'm not even going to spend a lot of time on it. Separate sub account for your cold outreach. Configure your DNS, your DMARC settings. Hire somebody that knows how to do this. Maybe don't do it yourself if this sounds like Chinese to you. Definitely warm up your email. Like Warmbox is a great tool. LemWarm is another one that works really well. You can use MailGenius and MX Toolbox to test. So once you've got it set up and you're going to start sending your emails, test it through MailGenius. See, did it get to Gmail? Is it actually getting delivered? If it's not, for you in testing, it's not going to get to your prospects, right? Spend a little bit of time getting that dialed in, and then leverage multi-touch. Again, I don't want to bore everybody to tears, Paulson, on this. It is important. Anything you want to add in terms of doing your cold outreach through HighLevel?
No, it's all Chinese to me, Josh. I just hire the tech guy and find the people that does this stuff. And only thing I know is it just needs to show up when somebody logs into their email. However that happens is how we do this. There's so many different testing systems and resources. And, for me, I just go with if you're going to hire somebody, don't go off of just case studies that they're talking about what they could do. Ask for a referral source. I'll always ask somebody, hey, who's another agency you've worked with? Can I call them and verify your relationship with them? Like, that's the way I like to do business. It's just easy. And I offer the same thing to them. Hey, would you like to know how I treated a team member or somebody that was a vendor for me? I'm happy to connect you with somebody that tells you I pay everything on time and do things professionally, right? So offer the same synergy of a relationship. But this is a funny area when you bring in experts, but I do recommend you bring in experts, because if you're like me, this is all Chinese.
All Chinese. It's all Chinese for all of us, but it's also very important, right? If you don't get it set up right, you can have a great campaign, it still won't get through, right? So spend some time really thinking this stuff through. All right, now we get to the meat and potatoes, right? Which is really the message and the different angles that are going to have the best outcomes. I talked about the one in your city approach. There's a whole strategy behind this. The value video outreach. The other one that tends to work really well is, can you handle an additional X this month? So can you handle additional X is, think about your prospect. Think about the highest transaction value thing that they really want. Paulson has said a couple of times in dentistry, I think it was dental implants, right? That was like, that was your thing within dentistry.
Yeah, I focus on implants as well as Invisalign, right?
Invisalign, okay, yeah, Invisalign.
And this is 2014 and 15. Around that time, nobody was advertising based on procedures. Like, I realized doctors don't want more patients. They just want more high-ticket patients, so they actually have less patients. So I stopped doing dental cleaning and consulting and whitening and all that junk, because they just want to see 5 more of the right people, right? So in your industry, automobile, guess what? I did the same thing. Nobody wants to deal with repairs and tire patches. They want to work with lift kits or, a massive body work or a paint job or something big, bigger ticket items. And that's a way you want to kind of enter in like a Trojan horse.
Love it. So as an example, like, we work with plumbing companies. Angle here wouldn't be, do you want more plumbing jobs? It's, what's the high ticket thing? Trenchless sewer replacement is something that most of our plumbers want more of. It's high ticket, right? So could you handle an additional 3 to 5 trenchless sewer repair jobs this month, right? That angle and a very simple message like that will get some responses. Yeah, sure, I could. And then you can open a conversation. You can drop them onto the pipeline and shoot a video explaining how you can help them get those jobs if they don't answer the phone, if they don't schedule in. So that's an angle that works really well. But what I think that would work for almost everybody is this case study approach, which is, again, we want to assume that you've got some level of experience with the niche that you're working in, that you've had some wins. If not, go back and get some wins, right? Go get some clients direct, get them as hypothetical beta test clients, do the work, get them the result, and now you've got a case study, right? Your whole business, first step is to get a case study. Second is to go and get more clients to do that outcome for, right? We've talked about this yesterday. We talked about it on day one. Go back and watch that. I hope all of us get it. But once we've got the case study, now we can lead with that, because that's a lot more relevant and interesting that you've got proven results with whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's your SaaS or your service, and that you've got something that is just for people like them. So,
Josh, can we do a temperature check on case studies real quick? Give us type in case study if you at least have one case study in your industry. I'm trying to understand where you guys are at when it comes to your level of confidence that you can deliver for a client. Because if you don't have at least one case study, it's really hard to market yourself and talk about the services that you can actually provide. Give us some comments. Type in case studies on the comments if you have at least one case study for your industry. Let's see. There's a few.
Paulson, you got muted there.
Sorry. Yeah. No. Yeah. I see a few people typing in case study. So there's a good amount of people, Josh, that do have at least one case study.
So I'm just going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen for a minute to kind of walk you through how this case study angle could be built, how you would send it in messages, and trying to make this as practical as possible. Ideally, like you're getting ideas on exactly how you would implement this. But when you think about your best case study approach and kind of how you would get this out via cold email, the idea is to lead with a strong case study of a client that you've worked with in your niche. And it would be something like recently helped X, like recently helped Shamrock Plumbing with their online marketing and resulted in X result, right? If you can get it into one sentence in a message and you can get that out and kind of float that into their inbox, you're going to get responses. And it's going to be the kind of response if somebody's like, I want that result and I'm willing to jump on a call so you can show me how you did it. So the way that you would craft this, and I'll show some examples from various industries, but the first thing is you're going to pick your best case study, right? The best client that you've got that you've knocked it out of the park for. Hopefully there's at least one, maybe there's multiple, and make it data-based, right? They generated a certain amount of leads, or they generated a certain amount of jobs, or they generated a certain amount of revenue. You're going to put the result and outcome into a single sentence, right? This can't be a 19-paragraph thing. Like, it needs to be short and punchy, enough to capture their attention. And then you've got to decide the subject line, the first line, which is going to be custom for every one of the ones that you send, the actual case study, and the CTA. So the CTA is, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to reply back? Don't tell them to click something with cold outreach, right? We're trying to start a conversation. That conversation is going to come via reply, right? So whether that's reply to your social message or the email itself, and then you're gonna run through it. So as an example, let's just say you work with bowling alleys, right? Let's say the niche is bowling alleys. You did whatever you did. You did SEO or pay-per-click or social media, and you generated $25,000 in monthly recurring revenue in 6 months, right? In the service, let's say it was Facebook ads or SEO, graphics design. The main brunt of what you want to get in your message is, Bob, custom first line. Yeah, I really love your bowling alley with, the orange and blue. It's really cool what you guys are doing there, right? That's your first line. It's very customized to that situation. It would be different for every one of the prospects you're sending this to. Recently helped Midway Bowl use Facebook ads to add $20,000 a monthly recurring revenue to their center, right? That is it. Another version would be recently helped Midway Bowl add $250,000 a year in revenue using Facebook ads. Recently helped Midway Bowl grow their business by 25%, right? You want to come up with a very short, punchy thing. Hopefully, I'm trying to do this quick, but give me a one if you're following along with me here. Cool. So I'm going to share that. Can we share this document, Paulson, with the group? That way they can use this as a framework for this?
Absolutely, Josh. So the real big key here is to make sure your story is very quantitative instead of qualitative subject lines. Like every once in a while, I make this statement lightly. SEO guys have a really hard time selling SEO magic dust, because it's hard to quantify the exact work that you're doing. So it's pretty hard to sell SEO. So similarly on case studies, if you just say, hey, we built a list for you, or you've got better presence in your community like you've never had before, it becomes really hard for them to really jump in and make a decision whether, and the real thing that you want to do is provide a quantitative end result that they're looking for, right? Hey, I brought in 5 new Invisalign patients within a span of 25 days for Dr. Jeff here in Houston, right? Like whatever that is, you want to come up with a case study like that. If you're not able to say that, you just don't have the right case study that's strong enough yet, okay?
Yep.
And keep pounding at getting better results for your clients on it before you can publish something like this.
Yeah, so this wants to be specific. So like if you look at the example here, we're going to say the name of the company. We're going to say what the outcome was, and don't make this up, guys, right? You need to have data in HighLevel or in your call tracking that's legit. Like this is what you actually did for that client. And then you can form it into your sentence. I recently helped this client get this result, right? And what it's going to boil down to is a message, something like what we have down here. Hey, John, my name is Josh Nelson. I helped Shamrock Plumbing, a service business like yours in Orlando, increase their revenue by 229%, 397 leads in 1 month. They went from 25K to 75K with just a couple of adjustments to their online strategy. And I've got a couple ideas that could work for you too. Would love to talk. Is that something you're open to? Right. So it's an open loop question, which if they have any interest in that outcome, they write back yes. Right. And now you move that on your pipeline. You call them right away. Right. And so you're kind of getting people a very specific result that you've generated just in an industry just like theirs. Paulson, are we tracking along? Is this making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and post this link that Josh just shared in the Facebook streaming as well, guys. So that way you can access that as well. So what happens with the case studies after this, Josh?
So you want to sequence it out, and like there's lots of different angles. If you're using the case study angle, quick question works well. The first name works well, and you're going to send the email. Then you're going to send a follow-up. Hey, just wanted to make sure this wasn't buried, right? And ideally, you're also calling them, leaving a message. You're looking them up on social media. You're sending them a couple of emails just to see if they're interested, right? Because you're adding value in advance, and then in my mind, the final piece that you're going to want to do is, say, hey, look, I can only assume this isn't a fit for you right now. You're not interested. Would it be okay with you if I send you my upcoming case studies or my upcoming interviews, my upcoming webinars, right? So you're sending 2, 3, 4 emails and then switching to long-term nurture. I got a cold call script in here. I'm trying to find that email in the system here. Yep.
Also, guys, remember this particular email sequencing is completely outside of your normal monthly newsletters, right, or your 52-week sequence that you build out for the industry where you're just providing value to the industry. This is a bit more sales oriented, right? Where
it's very sales oriented, but it's also kind of an introductory, right? You're like, they don't know you yet. You're saying, hey, look, I got this result for a client. Would you be interested? You kind of hit them from it with a couple of different ways. And then you say, hey, at this point, I assume you're not interested in this right now, and that's totally fine. Would it be okay if I add you to my email list going forward, right? And then if they don't write back no, ideally you kind of have an implied opt-in in my mind. And now we can invite them to our webinars. We can add value. We can shift them to long-term nurture, which is what we're going to talk about tomorrow, which is really this client attraction method. Hopefully this is helpful. I kind of threw some additional resources in here. That way you have it. This is one of the angles that I like really well. I've seen it work really well for the members that we work with. We use it in our agency in addition to the one in your area approach. Any questions on this before we keep pressing forward?
I think we're good, Josh. Only thing I can think of is how many different types of variations of case studies do you usually use? Do you use the same one?
Usually I'm going to test a couple different, like you said, with your scientific method approach. We're going to test a couple. And then once we get one that hits, we're going to use that one again and again, right? It's like, this client got this result. Would you be interested in getting something similar? And then if we're getting responses back, that's the one we're going to use. But you do want to test the subject line. You want to test the body. You want to test the call to action at the end. And over time, you're going to find something that works good for the industry and the type of prospect that you're working for. Give me one in the comments if it's helpful to see like a real example here, something that you could model, something that you could emulate. Okay, so kind of coming back here, what we're talking about is clear target. We've got our niche. List, we're going to join the association. We're going to get from a solid, reputable source, right? Whether we're going to get it from Coldlytics or from, Data Axle or one of these other providers, we're going to get legitimate names, emails, and phone numbers. Mechanism, we're going to reach out via email, via phone, and social messenger. I think sometimes when I share these examples, everybody goes straight just back to email. They want to just email. If all you do is email this stuff out, it's going to go to white noise, right? You got to combine the email with the calls and the social messenger. And then what we're trying to do to convert is we're asking for a demo or we're asking for a meeting, right? So we can show them, here's how we did it, or here's our mechanism, and here's how it works, right? So what I want you guys to do kind of as we think through the applicable part of this is think about which one of these approaches would be easiest for you to do, right? Could be the one in your area if you're doing exclusivity. Could you handle additional X? Like if you don't have any case studies or results, like if you don't have that, you could just say, hey, can you handle an additional 5 Invisalign cases this month? Question mark, right? Just wanted to follow up and see if you guys are interested in taking more Invisalign cases, right? Hey, I imagine you're not interested right now. I put out lots of great content about Invisalign. Is it okay if I send you my interviews and podcasts? Right? And then you move them to long-term nurture. Maybe that would have been, Paulson, a better, more applicable like scenario for most of the people on today's session.
Yeah, I believe so. Because that allows you to be, a little different than anybody else that's specializing in a certain tangible item or tangible result that you're going to provide for them. So yeah. And some of you may be thinking, okay, well, how does this apply to SaaS versus some of the SaaS hybrid thing? Guess what? Your end result that you're going to provide for a client still have to have a value proposition, whether it's SaaS or agency services or not. It's not about the delivery or the transportation. It's about the journey that you're taking them to. So your proposition could be, are you going to save time? Are you going to consolidate, reduce cost? Are you going to organize things for them in an automation? Are you going to set up better sales results because now you're helping them automate pipelines? There's so many different operational things that you guys are doing on the SaaS front. So just think through the value propositions, because that's going to be that X that you provide for them at that end of the month. Okay.
Good stuff. Yeah. And the other angle, if you've got good content, like if you've got the checklist, if you've got a book, you could send a message, hey, I just completed my new book, How to Triple Your Sales by Getting Your Internet Marketing Right. Would it be okay if I send it over? Would you like to take a look? Right? As you roll out new content, that also works as an entry point, which is a little bit less salesy than some of the other approaches, right? This is the content offer play. So what I want you to do is just, to make this as practical as possible, what will you use as your initial angle to get prospects' attention with your cold outreach? Just kind of plant that in your mind. Put it in comments if you're okay typing that in comments.
Also, Josh, what would be a good moment if we just take a quick break and let them just kind of come up with a lead magnet idea? And I would love to understand what are some of the creative lead magnet ideas that they have, and then we go through that proposition. Do we have time for that on your?
Absolutely, yeah. If you think this is a good time to pause and let them kind of work on that for a minute,
yeah,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, let's take a minute, guys. Come up with the lead magnet idea for your industry that you think you can do. So that can be a checklist. It can be, a resource guide of some kind. It can be a white paper. It can be a presentation. It can be something that you're going to provide for them tangibly. We kind of spoke about this yesterday. So let's take a quick moment and a pause here. And I want you guys to list out what your lead magnet ideas are going to be. Josh, your list is range from plumbing HVAC checklist, like you do an onboarding list. Is that right?
We
What are
do
the lead magnets you guys have?
we do the checklist. We do a list of the most commonly searched plumbing keywords, which for SEO and pay-per-click is something that they all like, oh, I want to know what that magical keyword list is. We do a website cheat sheet, which is just like a visual of like the key things you would want to do on your website to make sure it converts. We offer our book. We have a variety of case studies, like different types of plumbing, HVAC services that we've helped clients generate. Hey, we've just finished this, this case study. Do you want to check it out? We obviously got our book, which works pretty well. Hey, just wrapped up our book, How to Triple Your Sales by Getting Your Internet Marketing Rate. I want to send it out to you completely free of charge. We do webinars, right? Hey, I just recorded this webinar. Do you want me to send it over to you on X, right? How to get ranked on the Google map, how to make sure your website converts, how to, convert more of your leads that aren't converting, those types of things.
Yeah, in the dental space, when I was in dentistry, my favorite was 5 questions to ask for patient testimonials, right? It's basic for us, but it's a whole new world for them to ask testimonials. So that was one of the most, really, really potent ones. Another one was how to reduce no-shows for your dental appointments, right? That allows me to go into a conversation of managing sales pipelines and
I love that.
Another one was how to hire a staff that understands marketing, right? So it's front desk admins that they're hiring, looking for, so I would literally give them a job description, resumes to look out for, the type of people they should look for, what the pricing is of how they should hire, what are some trainings, and I'll also list out like events that they should go to level up their skills. Another one was last year's campaigns that you can do yourself. So it's almost like I don't need your business buddy.
Still our campaigns.
Yeah, it was like remember I did a white glove high ticket dentistry, right? So I was charging almost $5,000 for Facebook ads, and I didn't want to be the Honda. I was trying to be the Bentley, right? So I'm like, hey, here are the Facebook ads from last year. You may not be qualified to work with us this year, but you can run it yourself. So it also give them something to do and look at. So even if they failed, it's okay with me because they'll come back to us on helping them leverage that up. And that was also something that really played hand in hand. Another one was website and funnel checklist. Hey, you should have a chat. You should have your GMB profile. You should have a call to action. And I also provided them color codes. So if you have a blue website, your button should be yellow or whatever, green, right? If it's a red website, your button should be yellow. If it's black, your button should be white. Like all these little things that we don't really think of that they find quite a bit of value. So let's put down some comments here of your best lead magnet ideas. Let's see, Josh, how creative our marketing agencies are in 2022.
Love it. I see Abigail said ebook. Desiree says video tips, how to, like it. Let's see. Chung says marketing plan template. I like that. A lot of people can use that. Chung checklist, webinar at some point. Would love to have a book. Excellent. Good work, guys. Good work thinking this through and kind of getting this top of mind.
Okay, so one company in your area, that's a playbook you really like. Can you handle an additional X this month and also content offer? I like how you're going through this as if it's like a football play here.
Yeah, choose the play, right? You can't run them all at once. You can rotate them though, right? You can get your list, run them through a play, see what's working best, rotate it through, and then eventually what you're going to find out is the money is going to come from the list that doesn't unsubscribe, that actually moves to long-term nurture, that you can start to do the client attraction work with, right? That's where you're putting on a webinar, you're inviting them to it, you're showing up, you're providing value. They're like, wow, Paulson's got some good ideas on how to market my Invisalign services, right? He just shared some good tips, right? Or you invite them to an interview you're doing with a client. You're interviewing one of your Invisalign clients that just runs a great practice, and they hear you interviewing them like, wow, Paulson is associated with some successful Invisalign people. I should give him an opportunity to like kind of sit down. Over time, you go from an anonymous person to someone that added value to their life, somebody that they start to recognize, And eventually, when they're ready, they take the next step in your funnel, which is to schedule in a strategy session, go through the sales process, and become a client, right? So hopefully that's clear. This client attraction workshop, yes, cold outreach is part of it, but if all you did was the cold outreach, you'd be struggling, right? You'd get some people, but it would be very low conversion. Eventually, we want to shift them to long-term nurture. We want to develop those relationships. We want to develop that know, like, trust, which is where the best clients are going to come from.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. And remember, almost 60% of your agency and SaaS acquisition in the beginning is going to come from organic methods, okay? 40% is typically on average paid ads. I do truly believe paid ads is going to what really scale your business. But if you do paid ads without a confirmed offer or a process, you're just donating. Okay, you might as well burn that money and just have fun with some paper, okay? You're really donating. So if you want to build those foundational building blocks before you go into the market aggressively. So organic marketing really allows you to figure out cold as well as figure out how the market is responding to you, okay? So Josh, what happens next here once you have these plays kind of ironed out?
I just want to show a couple of examples because a lot of times people say cold outreach doesn't get response, it doesn't work. We get replies all the time on our cold outreach. So here's a client that recently replied back, sure, let's chat. Do you want to send an invite? Right? That's how they're going to respond. They're not going to jump into your calendar. You got to then jump on the next step in the conversation. Here was somebody, Steve forwarded me your email. I'm interested in speaking with you, right? So they're going to forward it to somebody else and that person might respond. I'm interested. Here's my phone number. So I just wanted to pull up a couple of visuals to say these are real plumbing companies in real markets that respond to these cold outreach messages so it can absolutely be effective. I think the next thing they want to think about really in kind of practical action here is we want to determine how we're going to get the list, right? In your specific environment, guys, where will you get the list? Are you going to join the association? Are you going to put a job up on Upwork and have somebody custom list it? Are you going to maybe find someone on Fiverr like Paulson said? Are you going to use Coldlytics? This is where it starts. You can't do cold outreach in the absence of a list. So where are you going to get the list? Think about that. Don't leave today's session without being clear on that. Number two is we want to map our cold outreach campaign, right? Think about what's email 1, email 2, email 3 going to look like based on the 3 plays that we just looked at. Can you sequence that out in HighLevel in a separate sub account? Really map that out. It probably starts with the Google Doc, email 1, email 2, email 3, and then it goes into a sequence inside HighLevel, right? And make sure that you get your workflow set up where it would drop them on a campaign, it would drop them into a pipeline, and you can really track the outcomes of your process. And then number 3 is we want to commit to touch the database at least 5 different times via 5 different modalities, right? So we're not just emailing, we're SMSing, we're reaching out to them from every different angle. Anything you want to add on this, Paulson? Any questions from the group kind of on practically how you're going to put this into play?
No, I don't think there's anything I need to add to what you've already elaborated.
Perfect. So the last thing is we want to work the pipeline, right? I've talked about this in depth. We could really unpack this further, but just thinking about some baseline metrics, right? Baseline metrics. Let's say you pick one city per week that you're going to do this for. And this is a very specific example. In our case, we're picking the city of Dallas. We're picking the city of Miami. We're picking the city of Orlando where we don't have any clients. Depending upon your niche, for plumbing, we can choose a city. For a very narrow niche, you might have to pick a state. But you'd pick one group per month or per week and add it to the top. I'm looking for about 1,000 prospects that I can send cold outreach to and take them through this entire process on a monthly basis. So it starts with the outreach. We call, we email, we connect. The ones that respond and express some level of interest, we send the value video. Then we try and get them on a discovery call through cold outreach. You don't want to take them straight to a demo. You probably want to do a little bit of a discovery to make sure they're a good fit. They're the kind of person you want to work with. Metrics wise, we're seeing about 2% of the cold people we put in will schedule a strategy session, right? We're finding through cold, you can close about 20 to 25%, depending upon how well positioned you are. So this is going to be completely different depending upon the vertical that you're in, depending upon specifically what you're selling. We find, we can wind up with about 5 clients per month through cold outreach, but we need to get the volume at about 1,000 or so on a monthly basis. And you do this consistently, kind of rinse and repeat, do it again and again. The other thing you do is you look at your sphere of influence, reach out to the people you know, be involved in the industry and doing live events. And that will just accelerate the amount of people that can come through the bottom of this funnel, at the bottom of this process.
Josh, I'd like to add something here. And I think this might be something you highlight a little bit tomorrow, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. This method that we've talked about in the last 2 days or so, or third day or so, it's really farming and harvesting some long-term play, right? So it's really important for you guys to all understand the sales cycle and the length of it. Like what you see today on your calendar are the results of what you did about 45 days ago. It's not the result from the 1,000 people you emailed yesterday or the day before, right? So there is a cycle on prospecting and this farming and this long-term play that you want to pay attention to in your industry. It's going to be different whether you're in an unsaturated space or a saturated space. You'll see different variations. Josh, like, what are the cycles you see if somebody downloaded a lead magnet? How long does it take for them to actually become a client?
Right. I mean, it really depends. Like if they're really interested in that moment, we can see it happen within like 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Sometimes we see people that have been in our database, in our world for years, right? They've been getting the emails, they've been getting nurtured, and they finally raise their hand. I think once they schedule in, it's usually about a 2 to 3 week sales cycle from meeting to close deal. But in terms of the spectrum from when they enter to when they actually schedule, it can run the gamut.
Yeah. So just be aware of those numbers, and don't get discouraged just because 100 people downloaded your lead magnet and nobody became a client.
Yep.
Don't get discouraged. You're just building your list. You go through the next round, and to a point where you have this massive audience, and then it's just a matter of lining up your offers the right way. Or Josh's method: take away the offer, let them know, hey, can we make a decision together? If it's yes or no within the next 7 days, give us a reply, right? So that's also another way to go about it. But remember, there is a prospecting cycle, a sales cycle, a customer cycle, and a revenue cycle. That's all in play while you're doing what you're doing.
Yep, 100%. I think at the end of the day, regardless of the mechanism you're using to get appointments, the thing I see successful SaaSpreneurs and successful agencies do that the ones that struggle and never get off the ground, the big difference is they're getting enough at-bats. They're getting enough demos. They're getting enough strategy sessions, right? You have to focus on this, right? Don't get so busy fine-tuning your offer, fine-tuning your SaaS, fine-tuning all of the other stuff, fine-tuning your pitch. You need appointments with people day in and day out. What I found is you need at least 15 strategy sessions per month. If you're not getting to at least 15 strategy sessions per month or demos per month, you need to focus more on your outreach. You need to focus more on your content. You need to focus more on your paid ads. You need to get yourself to about 15. When you're there, that's when you're going to start to see consistent deal flow within your business. I think that's paramount. So like really your action items here. Like I don't want anyone to leave without, this was fun. Josh and Paulson gave us some new ideas on how to do cold outreach and some new ways to think about cold outreach. The key thing is I want to make sure all of you do. You figure out where you're going to get your list and you map out that sequence. You map out that communication. You set the clear target in terms of what you're actually going to get done. And the big takeaway going from today to tomorrow that I want you guys to really make sure sinks in, right? We're going to get cold leads, right? That's the list that we buy, the list that we acquire, the association that we join. And we're going to do some cold outreach, right? We're going to email them. We're going to call them. We're going to SMS them. We're going to social message them. We're going to shake the bushes. Some of them will say they're interested. Most of them won't, right? A very, very small percentage in a cold reach out situation are going to say, yes, let's do this. But ideally, if we do this right, we're going to be able to shift into long-term nurture, we're going to be able to shift them from one or two messages to where we're actually adding value, right? Where we're warming them up, where we can develop that know, like, trust, that relationship where you're a person of value in their world. And for me, that's where the money comes in. That's where you're going to get consistency of closed deals. And really, that's what we're going to be getting into tomorrow. So I think we're like right on time to answer like a couple of questions as we wrap up day 3 on the cold outreach formula.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a moment here to kind of just pause. Those of you that are in the Zoom room, raise your hand, give us the hand emoji. And what we're going to do is allow you to spend some time, ask your questions. Rick Storley, if you want to jump on camera real quick and share your questions. And anybody else that's following, we'll just go in order there. Rick, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks, Josh. Great stuff.
Thanks, Ben.
I don't want to get deep in the weeds on this, but I want to just revisit using HighLevel for cold outreach. One of the challenges with HighLevel is, so I'm using Mailgun. I'm sending emails on behalf of. Doesn't look super organic. Is there a way to get around that? Can you set up the account so it comes out just from my email address and not on behalf of?
So what I understand is folks that do use HighLevel, they have their own separate sub account, separate domains, and they should be able to send it out from those independent email accounts, essentially. So to me, it shouldn't be behalf of, but I'm not the techie. Maybe I'm not understanding.
Right.
So Rick,
I wasn't sure if you run across that or not.
I think you might be overthinking that little piece a little too much. So if you get into the mail record and you click, you can see this was sent on behalf of whatever through the system. But the reality is your average business owner that's going to get your cold message isn't looking that. It's just going to show Rick from whatever company.
Yep.
I don't sweat that too much.
So you haven't had an issue with, in other words, you've had success with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'd rather use HighLevel. I mean, so that I can use the custom values and things, and it's easier to track with the pipelines.
And Rick, also for the record, like I've preached for a long time to not use HighLevel for cold. Typically, it's because people don't set it up properly. They violate all of it into the same sub accounts or the same Mailgun account, and then all of a sudden they have issues with delivering their customers' emails, right? Mm-hmm. But if you set it up separately as a whole different thing, like I think Chase has like a white paper on it as well, and a whole video around it. So if you go down that method where Chase is advising you and Josh's method, yes, 100% you could send it out. And remember, it's a volume thing. Like I do think you should be sending out 1,000 emails a day in most standard industries, right? So
or 1,000 emails a month, do you mean?
No, a day.
A day?
That's my take, because that's the type of competition and saturation there is in the market. Otherwise, you're not going to get, average, you should get about 5 to 6 positive replies a day, right? For you to get to those numbers, you got to be around at least 500 or more. On average, you can get to about 1,000 emails a day. So if your email size is, let's say, 50,000, you have, a month and a half to go through that if you want to. But those are the types of numbers that I've seen the best results for.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good question.
Let's go with Abdul.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
So, just have a few questions. I'm sorry, this is my first session. I couldn't attend yesterday and the day before. My question is, I have done real estate before. I've done real estate marketing. Like I've ran my own agency, but it wasn't really like digital marketing. I've done like cold calling and stuff like that online for realtors in Canada. So my question is, you talked about niche and all that. So should I go with the same niche, or should I pick something else? Because I know a lot about real estate. So I was thinking of going with the same niche, but I'm not really sure which niche should I go with when it comes to digital marketing. This is my first question. If you can tell me, like, if you can give me
my perspective is you always want to find the path of least resistance.
Exactly.
And that's usually going to be where you've got experience, where you get relationships. So if you've got experience in real estate, I would start there, and I would reach out to the sphere of influence, the people you've worked with in the past. Say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Here's what I can bring to the table. Are you open to meeting with me a few minutes so I can kind of show you and get your feedback?
Okay.
That usually is going to be enough to get a couple of clients, to get your case study going, and then you can start doing your marketing and building everything from there.
That was actually not here in US. That was in Canada, a real estate marketing company in Canada. So I've never worked with any realtor in United States. I've only worked with Canadian realtors. So if
I feel
that was
like Canada and North America, at the end of the day, I
the
mean,
same,
very similar, like very, very little distinction. No one's going to be like, oh, you don't have any experience in the US. That's Canada.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
don't think
pretty
that's
much the
going
same,
to.
but okay, so and another question you said about so you were talking to Rick. So you said 1,000 emails every day. Is that like a system that we got to use in order to like send 1,000 emails a day, or how are we doing it manually? How do we send like 1,000 emails a day?
I mean, there's a
So,
few
I
different
mean,
ways. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a
go
few
ahead,
different
Paulson.
ways. You can have a virtual assistant that's handling that prospecting side for you. You can run it through
Mm-hmm.
software. You can run it through
Mm-hmm.
high level. You
Mm-hmm.
can use, Lemlist, Coldlytics. I mean, there's collectively, however, your effort needs to be at a higher volume than, 200 out a day and nothing's really happening. Your science project doesn't have enough subject matter to really like make a judgment on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for you to do that, the higher volume, the better quickly. Yeah.
Okay. And when it comes to real estate, let's say if I go with real estate, what package should I offer to my real estate agents? Like I'm doing
What
like
are
a
you
website.
best at? Yeah. I mean, you start
Well,
with where you are and what are you best at. If forget
before
about marketing. What are you really good at as a person?
so as a person, like what I've done before, I was good at it, but the reason I stopped doing it is because after I did it, a few of other my coworkers, I was in Pakistan, so a lot of people that I knew that were working with me. So let's say the package that I was offering for $1,000 a month, they offered for 800, and the guy who started after that guy, he was offering the same plan for 600. So I had to shut it down because it wasn't really worth running that business anymore because people, the same realtors, were getting the same plan from a different person for half the price that I was offering them. So I had to shut it down, but I was really good at it. But that was basically phone calls, like cold calling to like homeowners and ask if they're selling their property down the line in like 6 months, 3 months or so. So I would just transfer that lead to one of my agents, one of my realtors working in the same postal code or the same area.
Yeah,
So that
you're
was what I was doing before. But if I'm doing digital marketing, let's say if I'm running this agency, do I offer like a website? And what if they already have a website? Do I offer like SEOs for their website? Like how should I like offer them the package?
I'm gonna tell you flat out, don't start a digital marketing agency.
Hmm.
What you want to do is start a
Hmm.
sales as a service business, right? It could be encompassed in the idea just like an agency, similar model. But what you're
Hmm.
good at is handling sales for real estate agents, right? So you want to
Yeah.
use SaaS, you want to use Eliza, you may want to white label an agency that can handle and check off some of those boxes like a website and funnel. But your main thing needs to be sales as a service because that's what you're good at. And the idea of like, oh yeah, some random guy undercut me for 800 bucks or 300 bucks, like none of that stuff matters because like guess what? Most US businesses are still alive
Hmm.
even while people from other countries are offering the same service for cheap, right? Like
Hmm.
there's a value you being in first world offering services to the first world. So yeah, don't think that to be a problem at all. It's just a matter of you differentiating yourself.
Okay, so you're telling me not to do like a digital marketing agency?
No, you don't need to. You already have the skill set for sales as a service, right? You're
Yeah, but
providing cold
I
cold
already
calling.
have I already have this digital marketing company. It's Blitzstack. I was just offering people, like random people, not like a niche, like anybody who wants a website done or like marketing for their business,
Sure.
branding and stuff. So I wanted to pick a niche for real estate and go with realtors. That's what I wanted to do. So because cold calling is a lot of headache. Like you call people, a lot of people are do not call list, and a lot of problems with cold calling. So I wanted to
Yeah.
do like digital marketing, like advertise their
Yeah,
name, like.
digital marketing is not any better. I promise you, it's not going to be any more sexier. It's just a matter of you figuring out what you're passionate about, what you want to build a team around.
Mhm.
There's definitely a need for marketing just as much as sales. So you gotta have to look at the mirror and figure out what you want to do because like you're going back and forth, right? Because
Yeah.
you got to just really do some research on it. But if I'm a real estate agent and somebody comes and offers me, hey, I'll call all your list for you every month for $2,000 a month, I'm gonna probably hire that guy on the spot because nobody wants to do that.
Yeah,
A lot quicker than Facebook ads. I promise you that.
got it. All right, really
Okay.
appreciate it.
Yeah, let's go with Muneb and then Thomas.
Thanks, Paulson. And yeah, I think I just graduated from the 7-figure agency program over here. So
All right.
so just for Abdul Basit, I mean, you should probably consider that program. It's actually really good. It'll help you select the niche, and it helped me a lot as well. So I have a quick question here. I've been in business for about 18 years, and we've targeted pretty much every industry except for gambling, guns, and porn. So the program certainly helped us target a specific niche, and we do have a certain verticals that we're targeting at the moment. So my question is that we're trying to design some lead magnets that are effective for our niche. And I've contemplated, whether we should. I love the idea of having the regular webinars, but I know that every month launching a webinar and planning for it can be quite onerous and can take quite a bit of time. So we don't have an evergreen webinar at this stage, and I'm trying to think of an evergreen or some sort of a lead magnet that we can use. So I'm just wondering, from checklists to ebooks or guides that people can download to webinars, what is the lead magnet that would be most effective, and in your opinion?
What niche are you in?
So currently we're also based in Canada. We're targeting companies that are looking to export from the province of Saskatchewan over here. And that's what we're starting with, along with some other provinces that are neighboring to us that are in that same industry. So
export from Canada to the United States.
To the United States and internationally as well. And mainly they're focused towards the ag niche, agricultural industry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the checklist is going to be the easiest thing to roll out, and just, hey, look, here's a checklist of the 9 things every export company needs to do to really maximize their lead flow online, right? And put that out and see what kind of response you get. Like that, you can get done in a couple of hours before you write an ebook and do webinars and everything else.
Got it.
Also, Minem, why do they come to you instead of somebody else? Like, is it a supply chain, superiority you have, or is it like, how is your service actually baked into the industry? Simply asking because I don't understand it.
Yeah, earlier Josh was mentioning about, having alignment with certain associations. So we've actually worked with a lot of different associations that have dealt with companies in that industry. And we have a really good understanding of what their needs are when it comes to exporting from this province and our neighboring provinces.
What is their number 1 and 2 need?
They're looking for growth, and they're looking to establish contacts elsewhere. So a lot of their marketing right now is to go to expos and have booths. Like that's what they do right now.
Stop right there. 5 ways to establish contacts in the industry. That's it.
Got it.
Number 1 you said is growth. That's not really a problem. That's everybody's problem, right? Number 2 is probably a relevant concern. You said they're all trying to have a contract or a vendor or supplier or some kind of a provider that they can either shorten time on supply chain, shipping and handling, or product manufacturing, or whatever heck export import people do. But 5 ways to establish contacts in another country is probably my number 1 test.
Got it. Thanks.
Good question, man.
Let's go with Thomas Roman.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the awesome call. I'm learning a lot. Josh, I read your book. I listened to it about a month and a half ago, and then I read it on my computer on Kindle and cut it apart and rewrote my entire business plan, chose a niche, and kind of phasing out my old web company. I've been doing it for 20 years. And I wish I had your information 15 years ago. I don't even know what would happen. So
That's awesome.
We saw some big wins in the fuel delivery business, where we were able to, it's like a blue ocean. So wasn't a ton of competition, and not a lot of big companies doing it. So we're starting a niche there. And I'm at the point of redoing my proposal. I feel like it's very complicated. I did my packages, really laid out what we're doing. I think I can provide the value on the calls. Had a few customer calls this week with just from what I did in the last couple of weeks, just pulling your content together, and
Nice.
very linearly took them through the program. I was like about authority building, about SEO, about the various things we're going to do, different packages, and every one of them in each of those price points is at like 3,500 plus, and everyone was comfortable with them. So meeting with people.
Nice.
I can't express to you the gratitude I have, because it was like we had the operations down, but this sales process was really choking me up, and just felt like it was out of control. So I'm at the point of doing the proposal. I was wondering if you had any, I don't know if it's the right place to ask for it, any proposal templates or anything like that like really simplifies it, because I feel like mine's a little long right now, and I'm just wondering if you had anything like that.
So send me a personal message. I'm not a big fan of proposals.
Yep.
I prefer a program overview.
Okay.
So like you can have a meeting with somebody, say, hey, you told me this is what you're looking to do. This is your goal. This is what I think we should put together. And you could just have a Google Doc that explains what it is,
Yep.
and they can just sign off on it. So don't make it super complicated. People don't buy based on a proposal PDF.
Yep.
Send me a personal message, Thomas, and I'll send you an example that you can use as a point of reference.
All right, thank you. And please have my sincere gratitude to you and your whole team. You literally changed my life. And I say that very, very humbly and sparingly. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you very much.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. Excited to see what you accomplish in the months ahead. It's super exciting.
Thank you very much.
Thomas. Thanks for the feedback.
Thanks, man.
And I feel the same way about Josh. I think I had his book like 3-4 years ago. Me and Rob and Alex read it together, and it's hilarious today that we're doing some cool things together. Let's go with,
that's awesome.
Is it Desiree?
It's Desiree.
Okay,
actually
close.
close, yeah. Well, you didn't say desire. Most people say desire right off the bat. Yeah, actually, I don't have a question anymore, so I'm gonna just bow out and thank you very much.
Okay, what was your biggest takeaway?
Oh, well, goodness. The biggest takeaway actually just came in the last 15 minutes, which is 1,000 emails. That's scary for me, and especially because I'm not hard coded into a niche. I run a magazine, and I stumbled into HighLevel because of doing content creation, video creation, which was supporting my magazine, and so now I really love it. I want to actually build that up, and it's a little scary. So anyway.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on board and saying hello. So Josh, let's do something real quick. Let's do a quick overview of what we can expect tomorrow, and also how people can engage with you, Josh. And I know I've got to get it out of you to tell them about your group and how they can buy from you. You're not a salesy guy, so I appreciate that. But we need to talk about how they can find you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did today was we did the kind of the cold outreach formula, right? We get the list, we send the introductions, we start to warm people up a little bit. Tomorrow we're going to shift to the client attraction method, right? Which is how we put out content, how we put out information to the world, to the client base, to the prospect base, to position ourselves as the go-to expert and get them to come to us pre-positioned to buy. We're going to put a nice little bow on everything we've kind of led up to over the last 3 days. In terms of, if you're interested in learning more about me and kind of how I can help, how I can coach you, the best place to start would be to go to 7figureagency.com/book. You can grab a free copy of my book. That will get you, into my list. It will also get you into my Facebook group. I do coaching and mentorship. So if you want more help, if you want the swipe and deploy of our campaigns and our sequences, we give that as part of our training and mentorship program. So absolutely my pleasure to share, and can't wait to hear about you guys' wins, and really excited for tomorrow.
Awesome stuff. Greg Boone, I saw your comment on the streaming saying that you had a question. And if you want to unmute yourself or turn on your camera, you can. Let's just do a quick rundown there. Greg, you there?
Sure, yes.
Let me see. Can we spotlight him? Where is he? There it is. Okay, cool.
Yeah. What's
Hey,
up, Greg?
What's your question?
Hey, how you doing, Josh?
Fantastic.
Good. Hey, so you mentioned earlier that you would call specific cities here and there. Do you have to have a license in every state how do you do that?
So we're a little bit in our agency, we offer exclusivity. So we only work with one company in each major market. And so we're able to reach out, you could do it whether it's exclusivity or not, but you could reach out and say, hey, I'm looking to work with the right company there in the Dallas market, right? And that's the angle. And you can reach out to all of the whatever, the people in your niche in that market. Hey, I was researching your company. I thought you'd be a great fit. Here's why I'm reaching out. Hey, you can kind of cascade messages based on that approach, which is a little bit interesting and creates a little bit of scarcity. It's like, hey, I got to make a decision because they're reaching out to all the other guys in that area.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask is in talking to my attorney,
He cut out for right in talking to my attorney, which is a great cliffhanger.
Froze him.
No, we don't want you to. Greg, if you lost connection here, so we couldn't hear the end of your question. There he is. We lost you in talking to your attorney.
Oh, okay. So talking to my attorney about a business license, she said that I could only make calls, do business in the state of Kansas. So I was wondering.
I'm not an attorney, and I don't pretend to play one on TV. Me and almost everybody in Seven Figure Agency work with clients in all over every state across the country. We work with clients internationally. I don't believe that to be true, but I'm not an attorney. You shouldn't have any issue selling clients outside of Kansas. You certainly shouldn't have any problem prospecting outside of Kansas.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. So Josh, tomorrow it's going to be the client attraction method. What's going to be what should they expect? I know you just briefly went over it.
Yep.
What are some things that they should have in place? What are some things they should expect? And we can close out.
So tomorrow, what you're going to want to think about is we've already talked about the funnel. We've talked about the list. What we're going to be creating tomorrow is kind of the way that you can nurture that list. We know that once we got our list sitting in the database, the association, the prospects, we know the money comes from touching them again and again with value-added content. But sometimes it gets hard to figure out what would I put out there? How can I create videos? How can I create content? We're going to give you a strategy to systematically create new content that's value-added, that your prospects will appreciate, that will get them more and more interested in leaning in and doing business with you. So that's what we're going to be unpacking tomorrow.
Okay, awesome, guys. See you tomorrow for day 4, okay?
Thanks a lot, guys. If you got value, post something in the comments, #value or something. And I really appreciate everybody's time. And Paulson, you're the man. Thanks so much.
Replays are on the YouTube channel, guys. So if you missed day 1 or 2, or now maybe day 3 as well, go to the YouTube channel for HighLevel, and you'll be able to see the replays there. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, Josh.
See you tomorrow.